I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey, Stire, and Jack Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Stire Sound, episode number 16. The Motocross of Nations has just wrapped up. Team Australia, for the second year in a row, the Lawrence brothers and Kyle Webster bringing the Chamberlain Trophy back down under. Team USA, P2, is an up-and-down day for Team USA, but another runner-up finish thanks to a tiebreaker. Eli Tomac's second in the final moto proved to be clutch. Team France rounding out the podium. We will wrap up all of the action from the Motocross of Nations this weekend and briefly discuss a few headlines of note in the motocross news. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening wherever you may be listening from. Joining me as always, my co-host from the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, Jack Noel. Jack, Motocross of Nations has wrapped up. Team Australia winning, not really a surprise. They put together a fantastic day, and sweeping the moto is a very hard accomplishment to do, but Hunter Lawrence went 1-1 in each of his motos, and Jet Lawrence took the win in the first moto. Dominant day from Team Australia.
Yeah, I mean, the Motocross of Nations definitely delivered this year, in my opinion. It was definitely kind of a bummer third moto. I think it could have been a little bit more fun to watch, just on a standpoint of if RJ would have been more in the mix and whatnot. But did you not expect it to happen, I should say? Like, I mean, Jet Lawrence, Hunter Lawrence, arguably two of the best motocross riders in the world right now. I mean, you could maybe even say, I would say top three, between maybe even top five. Like, but obviously, I think Jet's obviously the best, and then you have Hunter Lawrence not far behind him. Maybe a guy like Tomac Chase, or even like a Faber Kunin is faster. But a track like Ironman that they're comfortable at, and where Hunter Lawrence did get his first ever overall victory not too long ago, so it definitely showed the world why they're the best and why Australia deserves to be on top.
We'll go ahead and hop right into our recap. Starting with the qualifying races on Saturday, it was an immediate sign that Team Australia was back in business. And of course, I predicted that the Aussies would get the W. Edward said it as well on our last episode, and a lot of people really had Team Australia as the favorites. And then on Saturday, the qualifying races, Jet and Hunter each won their class. Kyle Webster was fifth in MX2. It was an immediate sign. They go with perfect scores into Sunday for her skate pick. Team Netherlands was second in the qualifying motos, but their weekend was basically over already. Definitely one of the things to rant a little bit about and to be frustrated about this weekend. Glenn Coldenhoff taken out of action in the MXGP qualifying race. Going through the rollers, there was a down rider in front of him, not sure who it was. I think it was one of the back markers. But there were no flaggers around, no one standing there. And then all of a sudden, Coldenhoff comes in, goes over the bars, lands really hard into the face of one of the rollers. Then they have one of the guys out there scrambling, trying to get people away from the motorcycles. But it didn't matter. Team Netherlands' weekend was already ruined because Coldenhoff was not cleared by the medical team at the Motocross of Nations to compete on Sunday. And then to make matters worse, Kai de Wolf does end up winning the MX2 class on Sunday, but Calvin Vlanderen also went down on Sunday. So an absolutely miserable year for Team Netherlands. I feel for de Wolf, man. Of course, he just came off narrowly missing his second consecutive MX2 championship. Goes to Motocross of Nations with a great shot to win. Two solid veteran teammates alongside him. Does his job. Wins the MX2 class. 8.8 scores for MX2 is usually very solid. But unfortunately, Coldenhoff goes down on Saturday and ruins things for Team Netherlands. And of course, like I mentioned, Sunday, the damage was already done. But Vlanderen also goes down. Team Germany had a good day in the qualifying races. Their weekend quickly came unraveled in Moto 1 on Sunday. Team USA qualified fifth. Not a bad position, especially considering we had the 35th gate pick from the random draw out of 37 nations. Put us to a disadvantage a little bit in the qualifying races. But Tomac, Cooper, and Hampshire each put together solid qualifying races. Starting on Sunday now with Moto 1, Jet Lawrence got the whole shot. Jet Lawrence got out front, did his thing. Lucas Coonan was right there with him for a little bit. Ended up losing ground a little bit late, but that's definitely a battle that I wanted to see personally, and I think a lot of people really wanted to see. Jet Lawrence versus Lucas Coonan, of course. Coonan is the rising sensation over the MXGP series. 18 years old, just fresh off of his first 450 season, and took the championship battle to the last round. And seeing those two out front was awesome. Geiser was third all moto pretty much. Fevre held fourth in front of Tomac early, but Fevre ended up going down in the split lane. Tomac got by him for fourth. MX2 class, as I mentioned, DeWolf was the best all day. He was the best in both motos. It was originally Sasha Coonan. Then Sasha made a mistake or two. And then I don't know if he crashed because of his bike issue or he crashed and then had a bike issue, but he crashed in one of the uphills. Justin Cooper tangled with him, but Cooper ended up gaining a spot from it, and Coonan ended up pushing his bike to the side of the track, failing to finish the moto. As I mentioned, Team Germany a few minutes ago, Ken Roczen was on a first turn crash, both motos that he competed in, and unfortunately, Simon Langenfelder, your brand new MX2 world champion, he couldn't really show what he was made of and show what he was about this weekend because he went down that first corner as well, and he walked off grabbing his shoulder. He would not compete the rest of the day. One guy who did make up a lot of ground from that first turn pile up in the opening moto was Kyle Webster, who came from the back to 15th place. A very valiant ride. Moving on to the second moto, Hunter Lawrence started out front, but he had some competition, and it wasn't who you would expect. It was Jan Panzer from Slovenia. It was Valentin Guillot from Switzerland, two of the best privateers in the world, and they were right up there, up front. But Hunter ended up taking off. Joe Shimoda, who helped Japan score their first A final appearance in 9 years, put together a great effort. He was cruising in second. RJ Hampshire made his way through the field, got by Liam Everts for third, got by Shimoda for second, and then disaster struck. It seemed like 250 class RJ Hampshire returned. I don't know if it was the pressure, don't know if he was riding over his head, what it was, but it was strange after such a solid season. And I mentioned, of course, last week, RJ's first 450 podium was at Ironman a couple months ago, but unfortunately he goes down a few times, knocked back to 7th. We were only 1 point behind Team Australia going into the final moto, but of course Webster put a 13:15 up on the board after crashing in the first corner both motos. And you knew the last moto, with Hunter and Jet getting ready to go on the gate, you knew it was going to be very hard. And then look at what happens the last moto. Hunter gets out front again, takes the whole shot, dominates the moto. Tomac solidly in second after getting around Shimoda. And then Jet Lawrence climbs from 16th to 3rd. He had a small collision with Isaac Gifting. Both men went down. Both men actually recovered to top 10 finishes. Isaac Gifting helped lead Sweden to a top 10 finish, 7th overall for the Swedes. A great performance from them. But once again, it's the Australian team hoisting the Chamberlain Trophy. Of course, we've covered the Lawrence brothers all season, their dominance, but it was a very poised ride from all of them. Hunter went down a couple times the second moto, kept things on track for the win. Jet, of course, being very patient, working his way through the pack second moto. And Kyle Webster, I called him the missing piece after last year's victory, but some people were still skeptical. I think his performance on Sunday really proves how valuable he is to Team Australia. Coming from the back is no easy task, but doing it 2 motos in a row and climbing back to the top 15 on a field mixed with 450s and 250s was a very impressive performance, and I think Webster should get a lot of credit for his comeback and for helping Team Australia get that second victory in a row. Jack, what were your opinions on Team Australia's victory? We'll run down some more of the teams and how they fared as well. But once again, another great performance, and Hunter Lawrence was really the star of the day. I mean, he seemed just untouchable this weekend, other than those couple small mistakes. And even when he did crash, he had such a lead that he just remounted and got right back up on the horse and took off again.
Yeah, I definitely think that Kyle was the glue guy this weekend, right? I mean, that's kind of what those two guys need. I feel like those two guys are so solid. You can almost guarantee a top 5 finish in all the motos from the Lawrences. And what you need from Kyle is exactly what he did. Like, and the fact that it was like I also I wonder if Kyle ever got the first gate pick. I was always curious, if I'm Jet, I'm gonna give Kyle the better gate pick in Moto 1. That way it's a little bit easier for him to kind of move through the pack or whatever. He can start in a better position because Jet's just so freaking talented. Obviously we saw when Jet works through the pack, he's still able to manage his way up to third. I was curious on whether or not he got it there, but obviously it didn't matter. He fell in the first corner and just put his head down and absolutely rode his butt off for those two motos. I mean, to get 15th in the first moto and then 14th in the second moto that he rode, it's really unbelievable. Just knowing that he came from the back, it wasn't like he started in 10th and was able to just kind of manage his race. That man had to try. You cannot deny that man was giving 110% effort to make sure that Australia had a chance to win that race or to win that overall. And he's the reason why they won. I mean, yeah, you can't look at any team sort of event and say a guy who did that went from last to 15th because, what if his motos were 22 and 21 or something like that? I think they still would have won, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's he secured it, really made it really easy for them to win. So it definitely was interesting. Webster definitely in my head cements himself as that premier second guy or MX2 guy. I know he typically rides a 450, but and obviously the way that Honda handles the whole situation, they're really, really good to Jet and Hunter. They let Kyle Webster, ride the factory bike. So they definitely have the tools around them, Australia, to be, kind of make it a dynasty, make it to where if Hunter and Jet and Kyle are on the team, it's going to take a lot from the USA to really compete. So, and with Tomac kind of getting to the end of his career, Tomac still has what it takes, but if we don't get Chase, Tomac, and then if Deegan, obviously he can ride the 250 well, but at the end of the day, it's who do we have? Once Deegan moves 450, is it going to be Deegan that's that guy? Is it going to be who's the second 450 guy going forward to be able to compete with the Lawrences, to be able to take that crown from them? Because I think that we can do it as the United States can. I feel like we haven't sent a full strength team since 2022, and obviously that year we won. So it's tough to say. I think it's definitely possible for us to win, but I could very well see Team Australia being very tough to beat into the next 5 years.
I think you look at Team France's stretch of 5 years, and they never really had a ton of dominant teams. They had some really good ones, don't get me wrong, but it seemed like just consistency, just always being there, being gamers, being like, you know what, we might not have the best team on paper, but we can do this. Well, Australia could be like that, maybe winning 5 in a row. You never know what happens in the Motocross of Nations. But when the two 450 riders go 1-1-1-3 during the day, I mean, that's hard enough to beat on its own. Plus Webster coming through the pack like he did. Like you said, if he was 20th or something in both of his motos, it would have made things closer. But the Lawrence brothers are so good that they make everything hard for all of the other nations. And, I mean, apart from Team France a couple years ago on their home soil when I think everybody finished in the top 10 every moto, I think it's one of the best performances I've seen personally at the Motocross of Nations. Hunter Lawrence, you can't give him enough credit with the day. I mean, like I said, apart from a couple of those small crashes, it was an absolute perfect weekend from Hunter because he won his qualifying race, he won his first moto, he wins the final moto of the day when all of the 450 guys are racing each other. An incredible weekend, and congratulations to Team Australia for winning their second consecutive and second total Motocross of Nations. Team USA second. I knew even with the lineup changes, I was still very confident that we could get on the podium. As I mentioned in our brief rundown at the start of the show, it was a tiebreaker that helped us. Thank you to Tim Geiser and Isaac Gifting, by the way, for getting past Fevra and Renault in the final few laps. That really helped things out. But by virtue of Eli Tomac's second place finish in the final moto to Romain Fevra's best finish of 5th, Team USA ends up P2 for the second year in a row. Tomac, it wasn't a spectacular performance. I don't think it was on the level of his ride at Matterley Basin last year, but a 4-2 day is a great performance from Tomac. He was not on the level of the Lawrence brothers, but he kept things clean, kept things consistent. Justin Cooper, I thought, was solid, considering he's not raced a 250 in a couple years, going 10-10 in that class, and he was second overall there in the MX2 division. Of course, Kaida Wolf went 8-8. But a solid day from Justin Cooper. And of course, I know a lot of people are frustrated with RJ Hampshire, and I feel like that's understandable to be frustrated with him. But even if he keeps it on 2 and he keeps things in check, that second moto gets second overall or gets second to Hunter Lawrence, and the final moto might go somewhat decent, I still don't know if we beat Australia, even if we have, say, 2-2, 4, 8, 10 on the board. That wouldn't be enough to beat Australia. Regardless, after all of the lineup changes and the chaos the last couple of years, I think walking away with a pair of runner-up finishes the past 2 years is a good sign. But as you mentioned, it's going to be really hard in the future for our team to get those guys together. It doesn't matter who you put on the bike, whether it's Sexton, whether it's Hayden Deegan, whoever it is. At this moment, are you really going to beat the Lawrence brothers at the level they're competing at the way they ride? If they continue this pace, Team Australia might be unstoppable the next couple of years. But all in all, I think it was a solid performance for Team USA. I went into the weekend. If you would have told me that we would get P2 again, I would have been really stoked. And then I couldn't help but feel a little bit bummed after that third moto and all of the RJ stuff happening. I'm like, we really could have been up there and fought. But then looking at the final scores, Australia on 19. If you're below 20 at the Motocross of Nations with the Olympic scoring, it's usually pretty hard to beat you. So I'll send it back over to you. Thoughts on Team USA's performance? Obviously, I think it's an admirable job considering this is a brand new team thrown together in a week basically to go and compete. But Eli Tomac, another solid performance, leading the charge for the American crew.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing that we just feel like we have so much like the US just has so much depth in a sense of like we have good riders that ride in America. Like it's like not a huge deal if we don't send our best team, like we can still be competitive. But it's like we're facing against Australia with borderline 2 of the top 5 motocross riders in the world. It's like you have to be able to send that too. Like you can't just send, oh yeah, we have RJ Hampshire and Eli Tomac, and it's like, yeah, Tomac's great. Like, I think Tomac's one of the best riders in the world, but it's like Tomac isn't the Tomac of old. He's definitely, and he's not. He still rides like he is sometimes, but it's like Tomac isn't like Tomac. You know what I mean? In my head, like Tomac isn't what he was before. And then Chase pulling out, obviously due to injury, it sucks. It's just like, man, I wish we could just send a full squad of guys and be, feel like we're going into this at 100%, which we definitely this year we with Deegan getting hurt and Chase getting hurt, it definitely sets us back. Like I think if we had that team, we have a really, really good chance of doing that. Like I think we get, we could have the ability to have 4 top 5 or 5 top 5 finishes in 3 motos, like out of 2 from 3 guys. Like that's so possible. So it just makes it tough, like, and if that's the case, then we would win. So I don't know. Like I wish we could do that, but at the same time, like we have so much depth. Like we're always going to be somewhat competitive, and like we always have the opportunity and the chance to win if those guys do race to the best of their ability. I mean, props to those guys for stepping in, Jay Coop and RJ Hampshire. You have to respect that. Like you can't be mad at them for not being, not winning. Like they did everything they could. We still got second. It's not like we were sixth place like we have been in the past. It's just gonna take top fives to win 5 top 5 motos to be able to be competitive, really. Unless you're doing what the Lawrence is doing when you have guy win on the, you have 4 top 3 motos and then you have a guy into the top 15, so that makes it a little bit easier. But it's tough. It's tough, and I hope next year, Ernest, we can send a strong team. I think Chase will be more than willing to go. I think Tomac, if he's still healthy and wanting to ride, he'll go. And then 250 wise, I'm not sure. I mean, if Deegan will do it because he's going to be on the 450. So even if he's proving himself, I'm sure he'd want to go. There's just a lot of things next year that we can think about. But performance-wise this weekend, I definitely, you cannot be mad at how those guys performed with such short notice. And yeah, I mean, props to RJ for trying his heart out. I just think sometimes the pressure gets to him, and we saw it this year in Supercross. He had the title right in his face. All he had to do was really beat Seth, and he couldn't do it. So and he puts Seth and himself on the ground. So it makes it tough.
Team USA, I feel like what makes the loss sting a little more is this time it was on home soil. Of course, last year overseas, the United Kingdom. So second place honestly felt like a win with that team. But
Well,
nonetheless, go ahead.
Trey, I will say this: like Australia, like Webster raced Ironman this year, and Hunter and Jet Lawrence both live in the United States and
Yeah,
train here. Like it's almost like
a home race
the
for them.
advantage of yeah, exactly. Like it's not like it's a huge. They're not like at a major disadvantage in my opinion. They're not like traveling like overseas to go do a race. Like obviously they did it in Great Britain and whatnot, but Australia and the U.S. like as much as we're different countries, yes, but like the riders that we're fielding, they all race in the AMA series. It's not like it's a major difference in my head at least. I mean, Kyle came over here and raced on the 450 and outdoors, did all right at Ironman in the last couple of rounds with Quad Lock Honda. So I look at it too, like, yeah, it sucks that we're home show. We have the American fans behind us and whatnot. But I look at it too, like from a rider standpoint, like they're not at a disadvantage at all compared to like a team like Belgium or France, who those guys don't race over here at all, and this is their first time racing. Then I look at it like that too. Like I don't like the home show thing. Yeah, you have fans behind you, more fans and stuff like that, which definitely stings. But from a rider's perspective, like I don't think that they're any sort of disadvantage being from Australia.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there, and we never really think about that. But Australia, of course, and Team USA, they compete on the same tracks every weekend, so they don't have that unfamiliar feeling that some of these other countries have. But moving on through the finishing results, Team France gets another podium. Not a crazy, flashy weekend from Team France, but it was just solid, consistent, a lot of top tens. Mathis Villan performed very well, in my opinion, for his first Motocross of Nations. He was really the question mark of the team. No Vial, no Ferrandis. Of course, they had Fevre and Renault, who have won that event in the past, but a brand new third guy. Villan performed very well. Belgium P4, Lucas Koenen goes 210. Not a great final moto, but he had a really solid debut. Sasha Koenen, of course, was on the ground a couple times. I think a bike issue there in the second moto that really hurt him. And then another moto, I think he was starting way in the back and had to work his way through the field. So on paper, 21-20 scores. But when you get involved in a first turn crash and then you have a bike failure or some kind of issue at the end of the other moto, it makes things hard. And once again, I think Liam Everts did a very admirable job, a really solid performance on the 450, even though he is a usual 250 guy. It was a great ride for that young team, a few points away from the podium, so they're probably a little disappointed. But last year, when Lucas went out due to an injury in one of the opening motos, they didn't really get a chance to compete at all. So it was a good day for the Belgians. One team I want to shout out, 5th overall, the best finish in the country's history at the event, Team Slovenia. Of course, Tim Geiser, 5-time world champion. You can't say enough good things about him. He was P3 to open the day. I think he was 4th or 5th in the final moto. A great ride from him. But then Jan Panzer, who we mentioned a couple times in this series, we mentioned him after the Czech Republic when he had his career best third place moto finish. Panzer goes out there, lights out second moto, third place, just behind Hunter Lawrence and Joe Shimoda, ahead of several other very solid guys. And when you have a guy like Panzer in the open class, who is usually just rock solid and consistent, it's always a good option to have. But the performance he put on was spectacular, in my opinion. He gets 14th in the final moto, nothing too crazy, but that third place was huge for Team Slovenia. Of course, they don't really have a solid MX2 guy to go with them, or even a decent level MX2 guy. I mean, when you look at Jakob Peklai, who went, I think, 37-33 for the Slovenians. So you put any guy basically in the class other than them, and maybe Slovenia has a chance for the podium. But shout out to them. It's a smaller nation. They don't have a ton of talent in the country, but of course Geiser is an incredible talent. All of his winning and all of his championship success in the past, plus Panzer being a really rock-solid privateer putting together his own effort. I thought it was a great performance from them. And one last observation, of course, I wasn't at the event, but headline I thought was a positive to take away from the weekend. I thought Joe Shimoda, despite only having a few days on the 450 machine, he was ripping. He got second in the first moto that he ran, Moto 2, and then he faded back a little bit to 6th to end the day. But I think it was a fantastic showing for Joe. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Japan's first A final in 9 years, which is impressive in itself. Of course, Joe has been at the Motocross of Nations before when he was on the 250 for Pro Circuit Kawasaki. He competed at Red Bud in 2022. Unfortunately, it was a really bad weekend for Team Japan. They weren't really close to qualifying. And congrats to Yuki Okura and Soya Nakajima, who can say, we competed in the A final of the Motocross of Nations. But Jack, I thought Shimoda's first real appearance on a 450 was a really great showing because he was mixing it up with guys like Tomac, the Lawrences a little bit, Fevra, solid guys who have been on the 450s for years or guys who are the elite leaders of their class. And Shimoda was running with those guys all weekend.
Yeah, all I can say is like Honda loves throwing a guy on a 450, and those guys like to show out. I mean, you look at J. Martin Daytona, his first race on the 450, ended up on the podium leading some laps, and Shimoda does the same thing. It's kind of cool, I mean, Shimoda really is one of the best riders in the world, right? I mean, if he's doing that good enough 450 against the best in the world and holding his own against the Lawrence brothers, Tomac, and those guys, I mean, and the Coonan brothers and whatnot, I mean, it's cool to see. And I think Shimoda definitely said like it doesn't raise questions if he does go up to the 450 class, right? So it's cool to see. And I mean, I hope Shimoda continues his success on the 250 and is able to win a couple of championships this next year. But I really do think that Shimoda put his team on his back and said, look, we're here to play, and I'm going to show you guys what I can do on a 450. It's cool to see.
Team Germany, a bit of a disappointment. Like I mentioned, Langenfelder getting hurt, so not really their fault. Of course, Netherlands couldn't really compete. Denmark as well, even though they probably wouldn't have been competing for a top five. But Magnus Smith also got hurt in the qualifying race. Couldn't really show what he was made of and help Team Denmark out. But it was a solid weekend for several organizations and teams, like I mentioned. Team Sweden in the top 10, and I would not have had that on my radar heading into the weekend. And then there were a few guys, our guy Stav Orlin that was on the show a few episodes ago. I thought he rode very well, a top 15 finish in the MX2 qualifying race. But before we move on, any other thing you would like to cover from the Motocross of Nations?
I mean, I would say Pankar really surprised me. I mean, I know he's fast over there in Europe, but I didn't expect that. Same with Gio running in the top 10, or not top 10, top 3, sorry. Unfortunately, he was out that second moto, I believe. Must have went down or something like that. But then even like Team Belgium, I think they're going to be scary how well Liam rode. And I think if Sasha would have not hit the deck or had a bit of an issue in Moto 1, they definitely would have been on the podium with how good Lucas rode and whatnot. So I think Belgium, if you look at it like this, like they're speed wise, like they definitely have a team for the future. With the Coonan brothers and how well Everett rode the 450, I think it was cool. And I think Team Germany definitely a little bit disappointment. I wish we could have seen Simon Rott race a little bit more and against some of those other guys, maybe guys like Jay Coop and some of those other 250 guys and even the 450 guys as well get in the mix. But the Wolf rode really well. Obviously, I think he's cemented himself as a really good 250 rider. I think he'll even be better on a 450 because he's kind of a bigger guy. But yeah, it definitely sucks to have Netherlands and like the Belgium team kind of have like positives, and then they had negatives just because they had crashes and DNFs, and obviously Kullenhoff not being able to race. Because I think those two teams would have been more competitive and more of a story at the end of the weekend if they would have been more in that top 5 debate.
I agree. I think that Team Belgium definitely has a very bright future. Of course, when we covered them on our preview show, one of the big talking points, in my opinion, all of those guys are 21 or younger right now, which means those three gentlemen, the Coonan brothers and Liam Everts, they could be representing Team Belgium for a decade or so, depending on if they stay healthy, if their trajectory continues. And I'll give Edward Heather some credit, our guy who, of course, hopped on last episode to help us preview things. He was there this weekend covering the action. He said that Evert's style really suited a 450, and he thought that he could be a really strong performer. And he was definitely right about that. Everts, of course, has had some solid rides on the 450 in the past before. Another good performance. Team Belgium, definitely a crew to watch for in the future. Now we'll move on to a few news headlines. Not too much racing coming up this weekend. We do have the AMA Arena Cross Series kicking off in Huntington Beach, California. World Supercross was supposed to kick off next weekend. Unfortunately, the race in Kuala Lumpur was canceled. There will now be a round in Stockholm, and the Argentina round that was planned for November 8th is still going on, but is now the opener instead of round number 2. Speaking of World Supercross, a 2-time World Supercross champion is returning back to his current organization. It will be the 4th season of the pairing next year. Kickstart Kenny is back. Ken Roczen re-signing with Pipes Motorsports Group, HEP Motorsports, Progressive Insurance X-Star Suzuki, whichever name you prefer. It's been a great tenure. Of course, the offseason between 2022 and 2023 was really fun because Roczen was testing out all these bikes. He was on the Firepower Honda for World Supercross. He had a Kawasaki he rode. I think he rode a Club MX bike or some other Yamaha at one point. He was really going through and trying out all of these bikes, and it was kind of a Ken Roczen sweepstakes, and Suzuki won, and it's been a great pairing so far. Kenny, of course, has 3 main event wins in his return to Suzuki. Who can forget that epic battle with Justin Barcia at Indianapolis in 2023? One of my personal favorite main events as a fan, watching with my buddies on my birthday and watching Kenny and Bam Bam tear it up in Indianapolis. And then, of course, last year at Glendale, he got the job done in a dominant performance, and then he got his first win at Daytona this year. I believe 23 podiums or so with the HEP organization. Of course, Kenny was the runner-up in the inaugural SMX playoffs in 2023. It's been a great tenure and time with that team, and it just seems right for Kenny to keep going on Suzuki. And even though he had all that time on the Honda, even though he started his career in America on a KTM, I associate Roczen with Suzuki the most. And seeing Kickstart Kenny come back and keeping the number 94 on yellow, I think a lot of people are happy about this. And I'm excited to see what Kenny can do in 2026. How about you, Jack? Ken Roczen, year 4 with HEP Suzuki. What do you feel about this move, and was this the right decision for Roczen to continue aboard the Suzuki brand?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see him going anywhere else, to be honest. I mean, obviously his Red Bull deal, I feel like, has a lot of weight to it. I don't think he would go anywhere or he would lose that. So it kind of cuts out a lot of options for him. So I think that's part of it. I really do think that is part of it. So, I mean, yeah, with them adding Anderson to the team, they definitely, it adds some coolness in the aspect. I don't think they'll be title contenders going into Supercross, but it definitely gives them the opportunity to have another guy on the podium. I mean, Anderson's definitely a podium caliber rider on when he's on his day. Yeah, it definitely adds some more knowledge to that brand. I think Suzuki's starting to step in more and more as the team kind of gets better and better. With adding Anderson, they definitely need that kind of support from Suzuki to continue to grow with their program and whatnot. So adding Anderson definitely spices it up. And for Anderson, I think it'd probably be a Supercross only deal, if I had to guess. And I mean, they have solid riders with Chiz and Colt Nichols too. I mean, they have. I mean, well, Chiz is done, right? But I don't know. That's more of like a World Supercross thing too. Like I feel like with Anderson, I think Anderson wants to do that kind of thing and compete in that level. And obviously he'll be a contender for that championship when he goes and races it, and then it moves him back to Florida. He'll be riding out the Moto Sandbox, from what I've heard. I know he has a house out here already, so that'll be cool. Maybe back to familiarity for him, and maybe a little bit more. Back in Florida, that's when he won his championship, right? So maybe a new refreshment of brands. And remember when he went to Cowie that first year he was on Kawasaki, he was a title contender. I mean, he was winning and doing really, really well. So I think it'll be good. I think he'll compete and he'll be a strong rider. And for the whole HEP team, I think it's a step in the right direction for that program. I mean, and then Kenny obviously sticking around, that definitely helps. A guy, you have 2 huge names now with Anderson and Kenny, both 450 champions. It definitely adds some coolness to it, and definitely builds that brand up a little bit more.
Definitely the most formidable lineup we've seen from a team in the World Supercross Championship so far, with Roczen and Anderson together for the PMG crew. And as you've been alluding to, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if Kenny's doing the whole series. I actually don't think he is. He signed like a 3-year deal after the inaugural season, like the 2-round season they had with Tomac racing England and whatnot. But he signed like a 3-year deal, and then they didn't re-up him. So like he's no longer getting paid from the series. So it's kind of like an interesting little thing. I think he's doing a couple races, but I do not think he's doing the entire series. So it's like 5 rounds. They added a round in Sweden because the Malaysian round didn't meet code or something like that. The promoter said so. I don't think we'll see too much of Ken. I know we'll see him in Australia, and I'm sure he'll do maybe the Odds X Open or something like that. But it definitely is interesting. I mean, we won't. I'm just saying we won't see Kenny. I don't think in the entire series. So, but Anderson, I believe, will compete in all 5 rounds.
Interesting to note, but as you have mentioned, the big news of the day, we were recording this Monday. Jason Anderson has just been officially announced. Of course, one of those worst kept secret type of deals where a lot of people expected this. I heard about a week or so, maybe a week and a half ago, that he was already on the bike at Sandbox. But Jason Anderson is returning to Suzuki. The first 3 seasons of his career from 2011 to 2013 were for the yellow brand. Of course, that was the old Rockstar Energy Suzuki team, which is now Rockstar Energy Husqvarna. The full press release: Suzuki Motor USA and Pipes Motorsports Group are proud to announce that 2018 Monster Energy AMA Supercross champion Jason El Hombre Anderson will join Twisted Tea Suzuki, presented by Progressive Insurance, aboard the Suzuki RMZ 450 for the 2026 Super Motocross season. Goes on, of course, to say his accomplishments: a former Nicky Hayden Horizon Award winner. Of course, he got his first win with the Suzuki brand in the 250 class, Salt Lake City 2013. The next year, the Rockstar team switched to KTM. He won his championship. But a bit of a full circle moment for Anderson. Started his professional career on yellow. Potentially, if this goes well, he could end his professional career on yellow. Cool move to see for Anderson. Of course, as you mentioned, a guy who was on fire his first year with Kawasaki. I think 7 main event wins he had. Of course, Tomac had a little bit of injury later in the year, but it was still a phenomenal year for Anderson. He was right there in the championship fight. Even won a couple outdoor rounds. Of course, Anderson, the 2018 Monster Energy AMA Supercross champion, a former 250 West Supercross champion. Still a star of the sport, and I think a change of scenery could be good. We saw how good the switch was from Husqvarna to Kawasaki. Maybe the switch from Kawi to Suzuki could give him more life and get Jason back as a weekly podium threat. Who knows? But it will be cool nonetheless to see the number 21 back on yellow. And one final piece of news before we conclude today: another team change, and quite frankly, this is a hilarious streak. 7 teams in 7 seasons. Carson Mumford, it looks like, is AEO Power Sports KTM bound. Motocross Action posting that Mumphy is testing an AEO bike. Vital MX reporting that Mumphy could be on AEO next year. And like I mentioned, a guy who was in the Geico Honda pipeline, originally a Team Green Kawasaki pipeline guy, but he turned pro for Geico Honda, but that was their final season. They shut down, and he's kind of bounced around a little bit from Chaparral FXR Honda to Bar X Suzuki. Then he got a fill-in deal with the Pro Circuit Kawasaki team. Ended up heading to Moto Concepts Honda that next season. Quadlock Honda this year, some decent runs. It will be interesting to see how Mumphy does, and this will be his first time on a steel frame bike as a professional. So a little bit different. Not another Honda team. At least some differences. And of course, Avery Long will be back for the AEO team next year. Don't know if they plan on having a third guy or not. Of course, Talon Hawkins stepped away from professional racing, retired, and moved on after a really rough crash at the early part of the Supercross season. And Lux Turner, we believe, could be heading toward a Bar X Yamaha ride. So Long and possibly Mumford confirmed for AEO next year. And then, as we mentioned, not sure if they'll go with a third rider or what could happen there, but thoughts on Mumford to AEO? 7 teams in 7 years has to be some kind of record.
Yeah, he seems to. I don't know. Like I think he seems to just find his way out of things, and he's a really talented rider, and I do think he has the potential to be a factory rider. I'm kind of surprised the factory team didn't step up and was able to get him. But I think sometimes the way that you see it is like he's burned bridges, and obviously the whole quad lock thing ended kind of shaky, and he didn't really get to show much while he was on that bike. But yeah, I mean, I think going back to California for him is probably going to be good. I think changing, from what I've heard at least, I think that he wanted to get off of Honda. So like teams like Phoenix who may have reached out or stuff like that, I don't think he really wanted to do that. I think he wants to kind of take a chance with his career. And AEO's definitely got some good backing. They have factory service engines and some good support through that. So yeah, it definitely gives him the opportunity to be good and compete at a high level and be back out in California where he's more familiar, I think, and get off the aluminum frame. I think that was something that he wanted to do. So he definitely does have a chance to be successful. And I think if he's able to hone in on what he needs to do, he'll be competitive. And it's a really good pickup for AEO. I mean, Talon Hawkins, you would have thought would have been okay. This guy has the ability to be a top 10 guy. Didn't really pan out. Obviously, he kind of suffered through more injuries and stuff like that, which obviously ended up in him retiring. And then Avery Long had a good year last year and bringing him back. So for the whole AEO team, I mean, that's solid for them to pick up a guy of the caliber of Mumford in the name of Carson. So yeah, it's cool. It's something that is definitely interesting to see how he'll do. So yeah, I'm curious. And then obviously them losing Lux to Bar X Yamaha, sorry. So to fill in that kind of spot where Lux was so successful, and maybe he'll bring some of the same success.
Like you've mentioned, it seems like some burning bridges potentially in the past, but Carson definitely has talent. He's been top 5, top 10 guy at times before. He's shown definitely flashes of potential. So hopefully the AEO Mumford pairing will work. And also, as you mentioned, he spent a lot of time on a Honda. This might be a good decision for him to try out a new motorcycle. Maybe the KTM will suit him. There have definitely been several riders in the past where you think they're taking a gamble, going to a steel frame bike after plenty of experience on other brands, but it ends up working for them. So we'll see what happens. Of course, we're in the early stages of silly season. We will definitely be discussing a lot more news to come on our show. But this has been episode number 16 of the Stire Sound, recapping Motocross of Nations and covering a couple brand new hot off the presses silly season stories. Anything else to add before we conclude today's episode, Jack?
No, that's it. I mean, I know there are some rumblings about Kawasaki's second spot, and how maybe that Ducati bike is one of those guys when Ducati may or may not be on that bike next year. Just it's just some rumors I've heard. Not entirely sure, but just some things I've heard. Kawasaki's obviously looking to fill that second spot, so I'm unsure where that'll come from. It could be a guy that's on PC already, but it definitely could be a guy like Barsha Ferrandis. Unsure, but definitely something to talk about.
There you have it, some inside scoop from Jack. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. But this has been episode 16, like I mentioned. Thank you all for listening to the Stire Sound and your continued support. We will be back next week to discuss more silly season moves. I believe we'll have some more stuff to cover. And of course, some other series getting underway. Like I mentioned, AMA Arena Cross first round this weekend. I'm going to try to check some of that action out, see what happens, see who comes out of there with the red plate. For Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire, and the Stire Sound is fading out.